Are we on? Okay. We should be on. It's live here. Let me see if I can get chat up here. Chat visible. Okay. You have to click on the. All right. I'm just going to go ahead. We're so technically noobs on this stuff. It's saying live and it's counting down. Okay, so we should be on. All right, I'm just going to start. So we're talking today about family disconnection. And this is sort of personal because we're going to kind of gear this to our family and how we were disconnected, why we were disconnected, and just Scientology, why they connect people and how they connect people. Can everybody hear me, by the way? If somebody can just say something in the chat, little yes, we can hear you kind of thing or whatever. But yes, awesome. All right. So when you're in Scientology, there are, let me go right to the basic stuff on this. As far as Scientology always claims they have no policy of disconnection. So in Scientology, there are these green volumes and policy and things that are policy. Anything with green printing on it in Scientology. You hear this sort of golden age of admin, which is basically having to do with their management, and that is their green volumes and the policies that have the green printing. Red is technical, where you have the anything to do with auditing and that type of thing, anything related to auditing and cases and stuff like that. And then you have the books. So Scientology claims that they have no policy on disconnection and that it was canceled. And I believe it was, but I think they actually brought it back in. But if you look at where it says, where he talks about disconnection, it's actually in one of the books, Scientology Introduction to Ethics. And so Scientology is always going to twist stuff. They're going to be, because it's not, there's no policy, maybe it's in a book. Say, no, we have no policy on disconnection. And, knowing full well that it's in one of the books or in the ethics book. And what he says about it basically is, I printed off a few things. I promise I won't read a whole lot of this, but just to give you an idea, there's suppressive persons who commit. There's a whole list of a description of what a suppressive person is, an SP, but they can also commit. Somebody commits a suppressive act, they can be declared suppressive, and then you have somebody who's PTS, which is potential trouble source, and that's a person who's connected to a suppressive person. So, and that is, in that case, they're kind of considered sort of a potential trouble source, meaning they could be trouble for Scientology. They're going to, Hubbard says they roller coaster, they'll get gains, they'll lose gains, and they just cause a lot of trouble. So if somebody is PTS in an org, in Scientology, if they're public or if they're staff, then what the book says in the ethics book, if a PTS person is connected to someone who is antagonistic to Scientology or its tenets, which is their beliefs, in order to resolve the PTS condition, he either handles the other person's antagonism, or as a last resort, when all attempts to handle have failed, he disconnects from the person. That's right in the ethics book, about what to do if a person's PTS. So Hubbard defined handling as the action to lessen the situation towards an antagonistic individual by means of communication, and disconnection as a decision to cut communication with another individual. So handle is the whole handle step in Scientology is one of two things. If a person is not a Scientologist, like if they've never been in, like I'll give you an example. When my mother, when we first got it, my brother and I were first in Scientology, she wrote a letter to the local newspaper saying Scientology is all about money, and that's a no-no in Scientology. So we had to either handle or disconnect. Now, I wasn't even told about it because they knew I was kind of like always a bit shaky on Scientology anyway. So they sent my brother out to handle my mother. The handling in that case was not do some conditions in ethics or do this or that, because my mother was never in Scientology and would never agree to that anyway. The handle step there was you need to stop criticizing Scientology or whatever. I don't know what my brother said to her, to be honest. I didn't hear about any of this till after the fact. So the handle step was basically to get her to stop writing letters to the newspaper, stop criticizing, and to, just sort of leave it alone and everything would be fine. And she did stop. I know that through her entire life, she just hated Scientology, but she stayed quiet and never said anything. A few times during her life, you could get a few comments from her that sort of showed that how she really felt about it. But if a person is a Scientologist who has been declared suppressive, and the handling step there could be anywhere from going to see the chaplain in an org, a local org or a flag or something like that, and sort of get your head straight so that you can kind of get back on the bridge. And the whole concept of handle for someone who is a Scientologist who has either been declared or is PTS and being threatened with disconnection is basically to get them back in and back on track, back in Scientology, back in for the cause and all of that. So that you could either see the chaplain. Typically, if a person's declared and somebody's handle is, sorry, I see some chats popping up. I always think it's great to have chats. Some people like to limit their chats, but I just think it's a community. So go for it. Say hi to your friends, have a conversation, doesn't matter. Anyway, so the whole thing with the Scientology's handle step on somebody who's been declared is either just, it might be a simple handle like go and do some condition, but typically there's this thing called A to E. I don't know if most people say, oh, he has to do A to E and this and that. Most people don't know what the A to E steps are, and they're kind of like I mean, I'm not going to read the specifics on each one, but they're basically A is individual must announce to oneself and to fellow group members that one is in the condition. You have to kind of say, yeah, I'm a bad guy. I'm a suppressive, and I'm just telling you guys, okay, I'm a bad person now. And anyway, and then the individual must seek out and receive any censures that may be due. So they're going to go and talk to, now, typically a person who's actually been declared suppressive, they're going to say your only terminal is the international justice chief. Often, and most often, you can actually never get through to them or get a response from them. And if they do, it's rare. I think I've known a few over the years that have done the steps A to E and got actually, one couple that actually got back on, and they're still in. And this was back, I think, in the 80s when they were declared, and they actually went out and did A to E and got back in good graces. So you have to kind of go, yeah, punish me. I'm here. I want to get back on the bridge. I'll take whatever punishment is due. Then the individual must, for C, must deliver an effective blow to the enemies of the group one has been pretending to be part of, despite personal danger. So sometimes that's a matter of if they've been connected to like other suppressives, or they've been with another group of some kind, or whatever, they have to kind of expose every like, I think they make you kind of expose all the communications you had, turn over anything, um, just whatever it takes that they feel, or do some damage to that person. They might say, well, look, you've been working in a psychiatrist's office. You need to go and picket that psychiatrist's office and do some damage to that guy, or you need to write a bunch of letters or to the government and turn them in for something, or when you're working in the office, what did you find out? Something. It's just they want you to kind of turn on everybody you've been in contact with that might have been considered as opposing Scientology. D is individual must make up the damage one has done by personal contribution far beyond the ordinary demands of a group member. Mostly that is money. They want a ton of money. So to get back in the good graces of Scientology, if it can be done, they want, and this is probably the one they like the best, because Scientology is all about money, and they always have been all about money, money and control, but really it boils down to money. So if you're trying to get back in Scientology, they're going to want you to donate to the IAS, building fund accounts, whatever, and that number is going to keep going up while you're on that step. And no, it's not enough. You got to do more, more, more. And then E, the individual must request and receive permission to rejoin the group. This whole A to E thing is very similar to a liability formula. Like there's the conditions formulas, normal, and affluence and power, and then below that you've got emergency and danger and liability and all that. So so you have to get permission to get back in the group. And I don't know when it's a suppressive going back in, whether it's just getting permission from the international justice chief. I know with a liability formula, you have to write down everything you did, all the contributions you did, and then go around to all the staff in the organization and get them to sign off on, yeah, you did enough. You're good, back in good graces with us, and I'll sign off on it. I've seen it happen though, where somebody's just done a ton of stuff, donated money, they've worked their butts off in filing and this and that and cleaning toilets and all that, and then they'll hand their thing to somebody on staff and they go, no, that's not enough. Because some people, they take their power seriously and they'll run it on somebody else. So it's not uncommon for that step to have to be done a few times and go back and do more. And I don't know, as far as suppressives going through A to E, how many times. I'm sure there are times when someone's going to go through all that and still get turned down. Or what I have seen happen is somebody can go through all that, kind of get accepted back into the group, but they're never quite allowed fully back in. They're not allowed on the they wouldn't probably be allowed on OT levels, because you have to kind of get approval for each one and an invitation, because it's so important, even if you've paid for it. So if you've been declared and gone through A to E and you kind of squeaked your way back in, you might have trouble getting up the bridge at that point, and you'd have to. And I knew somebody in that situation. I don't think they were declared, but there's always this subtle thing about, no, you can't get on that quite yet. You have to go and do this ethics program. So how that relates to disconnection is, if you do all of that so that you can be back in contact with your family, most likely the contact will be very, oh, no, I'll get back to that question. That's a really good question, the footage about Aaron talking to her daughter. So the thing is, if you do get back in good graces somewhat after going through A to E, the contact is going to be minimal. It's going to be like really peripheral. Like you might get a phone call, if you're lucky, once a month, and it'll be, yeah, I'm doing fine and everything's good. And, oh, listen, I got to go. I'm right in the middle of a project. Gone. And it'll be like a 3-minute call, and there'd be nothing, no real conversation. And if you want to see them, That's difficult too. Even when we were in good graces and our kids were in the Sea Org, it was really tough to see them. We had set up kind of a family reunion once, and we were in Florida, the kids were in LA, and we were going to have a whole reunion in Canada with other family, and big reunion. We paid for flights, everything. And at the last minute, Emily gets on the phone and said, "No, I got this thing that came up, this project, and I can't make it," and da da da. And she never went. So they just wouldn't let her go. It's the control is just too tight on some Sea Org members and family members, and we weren't even declared. We were in good standing in Scientology, but the somebody in the Sea Org, it's still very, very tightly controlled. We have had a few times, I posted a video on this when we were in LA once, and they allowed the kids off for a day. And we had a great time. But what wasn't in the video, that wasn't really shown in the video, was just how exhausted these kids were. When we were sitting on the beach, and you could see them just lying on the towels, just falling asleep because they were just kept up all the time. So, a great video and it's good memories and stuff, but Scientology doesn't treat people well. So, anyway, that's the end of the A to E. And he says, these steps are meant to help the individual address any wrongdoings, make amends, and ultimately be reinstated within the group or organization. Part of Scientology ethics and justice system, which is intended to help individuals improve their behavior. Now, improving your behavior in Scientology means obey. That's what it boils down to. Obey. Obey, give money, and give your labor free, or as close to free as they can get it. And in some cases, that is free, because there are times on staff when you don't get paid. And I know that happens in the Sea Org as well. So now, so our family, I went through just to kind of list out. Willie and I got in, we met in Toronto back in 72. Both of us had been in for a couple of years prior to that, but then we met in 72. We were teenagers, and we met in Scientology Toronto, and got together. It was a bit rocky at first because at one point the executive director of the org actually ordered us to split up because I was getting audited, and I had some money, and so but we were dating and we were going out and we were having fun and stuff too, and they considered that a distraction. So we were ordered to break up because that was distracting from my auditing. So we did for a short time, but we got back together, and but they control you. I mean, Scientology is all about money and control, and you got to obey what they do, or you can be in trouble, and you can kind of go, well, I'm not going to do that. And a lot of times I did, and I'm amazed that I got away with that so many times. But at the same time, there were definitely times that we sort of followed them. One time we didn't. I think I talked about this once before. Is the ED called Willie and I in to his office, and he had, I think, 4 of his sort of cronies behind him, behind his chair. He was sitting at his desk, and he had to sit down on the 2 chairs in front of his desk. And he says, "So we need to know about your sex life details, and we want all the details." And I looked up, I looked at him, and I looked at all his people, these guys, he's standing behind him. I go, what a creepy freaking thing. I said, no, I don't think so. And I got up, and Willie and I walked out. But that kind of, I was just crazy shit that happened. And that was back in the 70s. So people say that it was better back then. Maybe in some ways, but in some ways it was worse too. It was just as bad or worse in some ways. Anyway, get back to our family. So it was Willie and I. Her family, nobody got in Scientology. So we always had a very good relationship with her family. My family, there was my brother who followed, and then I think my brother got my sister in. That's how she came in. And then, so aside, well, let me go through these one at a time. I mean, we got our 2 kids that are in the Sea Org, and they are disconnected from us. And then, sorry. All right. Okay, and then there's my brother, and yeah, this one's a tougher one, this whole thing. So then my brother had his first wife. They had a son, really nice guy, and we were actually pretty close. In fact, at one point in time when my brother was kind of off doing whatever, his son was living with us for a while. I can't remember for how long, but we took care of him for some time. He's now married and he's got a daughter, and so his wife and daughter are disconnected from us. Then my brother's third wife, they had 2 kids. I don't know if one of them is married. The other one is married and they have a daughter. I don't know if they have 2 kids. Anyway, so I know that they have 1 daughter. So that nephew, those 2 nephews are disconnected from us. The nephew's wife and the daughter are disconnected from us. All right. Then, and then her family, the one nephew's wife's, the in-laws there, they're all disconnected from us, her parents and that. And then our son's wife's, I guess her father has passed away. I'm not sure about her father, whether he's passed away or not, but her mother, I think, is still around, and she's disconnected from us. And we've known them. We've met them, we had dinner with them and stuff. They're disconnected from us. And then there's my sister and her husband. My sister has a son from a previous marriage, and he and that nephew and his wife are disconnected, as well as my sister. Then my sister has remarried, and he has 2 sons and their wives, and one of them has a daughter, and there is, and I think I've covered them all. I counted all the ones we kind of know about, like that are as far as their either immediate family or close in-laws that we would be connected to. So I came out with a number of about 27. Now there might be a few we don't know about, if over this last 8-10 years that we've been disconnected from, that maybe there had more kids in there, but at least 27. So from just that start, from us having gotten out, this does not include friends, business associates, acquaintances that we knew in Scientology. I mean, it's got to be in the hundreds altogether. That but just from Willie and I, immediate family and close in-laws, at least 27 that I know about, and then there might be another son or daughter or something from these guys. And I think actually, my brother's, actually he remarried, so there's another daughter. Oh, another a niece from his first wife. And actually, I know I used to have some communication with her about her artwork. So I don't know. Anyway, you get the point that there's tons of family. So Scientology. So what happened was, when we were in, and we, I've talked about this on a few interviews and stuff, where we were. There was, back 10 years ago or a little more, there was this whole Facebook police thing where if their connections were considered, like what we were talking about, somebody being PTS and connected to a suppressive person. Well, it got to a point where anybody leaving Scientology, and even sometimes they didn't even need to say anything negative about anything about Scientology. Um, if they were connected to somebody who might have criticized Scientology at some point. So what was happening was, if you had on your friends list in Facebook somebody who had left Scientology and there was any question about anything, you were ordered to disconnect from them, meaning unfriend them or block them on Facebook. So, at first we were doing that a few times because there were some people people on the friends list that we didn't really know that well, had never really been in that much touch with, until we were told to disconnect from a family that we'd known for 25 years, really nice people. And I don't think they were even criticizing Scientology. I think their son might have, but they hadn't. And so we were ordered to disconnect from them, and I said no. And that's kind of what blew it all up in the end, because my sister, she's still hardcore in Scientology, and she flew down to Florida from Canada and basically turned us into flag, and that's what caused the disconnection at that point. And we did get, I guess you could consider it a handle letter from our daughter. It was a letter that I mean, some of it I didn't fully understand. It was a bit confusing. So I think what was happening was Osa was probably coaching on what to write, because some of the stuff that was in there was um, a little bit sort of something, I don't know. But anyway, so but there was one part of it where it was just towards the end where it was, go and see the chaplain at Flag, because we were living near Flag at the time. So it was basically trying to get us handled. Go into Flag, talk to the chaplain, find out what you need to do to get straight and back on the bridge and all that stuff, and get your head squared away and back in Scientology. But we were out. We'd been out for like 2-3 years at least, maybe more, in our heads. We were just kind of being under the radar at the time. But as far as handle goes, that's probably the only family that actually tried to handle. I mean, I never heard from my sister, my brother. Nobody called up and said, hey, what's going on? Hey, do you think it's worth, let's sit down and talk about this? Whatever. Nobody did that. There was no handle step. The only handle was that one line in that letter that said, go and see the chaplain. And I did get a phone call from a guy I knew who was on lines at Flag. He's an OT8, and I could say friend, but more of a close acquaintance. I used to ride motorcycles with a group, and he was part of that. So he called me up to find out what was going on, because I guess he heard that all about this disconnection. It's like, oh, I'm OT8. I can call Phil. I'll handle this. So he called me up, and he said, what's going on? I said, yeah, we just, after all these years, we realized there's no such thing as clear, and there's no such thing as OT, and da 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 da. Well, that wasn't going to go over very well with him. So he just wanted to get off the phone. And so he said, no, this is enough. I'm getting off this conversation. I'm going to hang up now. And he said, we paused for a minute. He says, no, I'm going to hang up now. Phil, I can't hang up my phone. You're going to have to hang up. An OT8, cause over life, couldn't hang up his phone. I still chuckle about that to this day, and that's over 10 years ago. That's the top of the Scientology bridge for you. Somebody who could not hang up his phone and couldn't communicate. I mean, I look at my brother. He's done grade 0 in auditing, which in Scientology, the end phenomenon is supposed to be that you would have the ability to talk to anybody about anything, anytime. And yet he's unable to talk to me at all. One time I ran into him since we were disconnected. He would not have anything to do with me. I said, why don't we go have a coffee and just sit and chat and talk about this? He wouldn't have it at all. So there's no, they talk about handle or disconnect, but there's no handle anymore. It's just basically disconnect at this point in time. So I'm going to run short here. I dropped my clipboard. Yeah, that's what that bang was. So I've only got a half an hour, so I'm going to take some questions in a minute. But um, two funny things. No, not one funny thing and one kind of cool thing. So this has nothing to do with this connection, but in Scientology, over the years, we've seen some couples that where one of the spouses would stray and find somebody that they liked a lot, and they would go and have sort of either a hidden relationship, sometimes hidden. Sometimes you hear these things. Well, how long were they with them before their wife found out? 6 months. How can they? Anyway, the thing is, the number of times you'd hear the comment of, "Well, they knew them in a past life, and in that past life they agreed to get together. They had a connection already." And it's like that's a Scientology thing right there, is like this infatuation for somebody else, and they justify it by going, yeah, I can feel it, that it was a connection from a past life, and that justified their cheating on their spouse. So anyway, that's just a funny, not funny. And a final thing on the thing with my mother. um, sorry. uh, we were able to tell my mother that we were not doing Scientology anymore before she passed away. And I think that made her really happy. And it made me really relieved that we were able to do that. Uh, all right. Question. Have you found out any new information about your children since they disconnected? As far as our son goes, no. We have no information that we've uh, gotten. On our daughter, because she's sort of more public facing, because she works in author services where um, she does events and stuff. Like she'll be at, I guess, Comic-Con in San Diego, and she goes to um, uh, like these book shows and comic shows. And there was that one in Tampa, and I can, so we see her on these videos, and I don't know if she does them anymore, but she used to do these interview videos and stuff with some of the writers of the future writers and the judges and stuff like that. I haven't seen her do them that much anymore. I think mostly that's done by John Goodwin now. Um, but you still see her in the events, on the Writers of the Future event. You'll see her in the pictures and stuff like that. So this brings us back to that question someone else posted earlier about the video that Aaron did when we had wanted a message passed to our daughter, and we knew that she was going to be in Tampa. And Aaron agreed to pass the message on for us. And he went down there, and somebody was videoing. It wasn't the greatest video because it was like kind of not direct on, but you could hear what was being said, and he handled it really well, I thought. And I don't have a copy of the video. I don't think I do anyway. I might do, but it's not a great video. But I don't. I'll see if I can find it, and if it's worth posting, I'll post it. But um, she knew who Aaron was, so she kind of gets, I guess, informed in some of this stuff. Maybe because she was going to be in Tampa, and she knew that Aaron was in that area, that there was a possibility that he'd go by or not. But I was really thankful to him that he did go by and pass that message on to our daughter. It was one of the very few times that we've been able to get a message to her. Did you do some work with Doug Kramer with the Call Me sign? Doug Kramer, I know that name. Um, I can't recall. I'm sorry, that's 8 years ago. I'm in my 70s. My memory is not as good as it used to be. If I saw his face or something, I might know. I know where your loved ones are, or know on Scientology. Um, I'm not sure what that means. If you could rephrase the question, I'll try to answer that. Send an interview with a link of an interview with her. Yeah, I have lots of that, and I appreciate, people keeping an eye out, and there is a friend who sends some images once in a while, but I do see them. He sends them over, and I do appreciate that. Sometimes it's hard to watch those videos because, I it's just her doing an interview of somebody, and on one side it's kind of nice to see her and that she's still kicking, but on the other side it's difficult sometimes to watch. Um, all right, I'll take another question. Sorry, I have to lean in. I'm not wearing my glasses. I, I'm hard with close up words sometimes. My eyes are not as good as they used to be when I was younger. But so yeah, if anybody's going to be at Comic-Con, the San Diego coming up, be polite if you do stop by and say hi. Just say, Emily, please call your mother. The disconnection is hurtful, but be nice about it. Don't, try not to get too rude. She's got a reputation for being kind to people in certain situations, and I've talked to people recently who knew her when they were in not that long ago, and she would do, because she's in a kind of a higher up position. She would kind of watch out for people, take care of them somehow. So she's got a reputation for being kind. On the comments here, that's fine. That's fine. It's an open room, as long as people don't kind of get sucked into any negatives. So, question, sorry, do you know where your family is in the USA? Well, we know that our son is at Celebrity Center in Los Angeles, and our daughter is at Author Services on Hollywood Boulevard. My brother and my sister live 10 minutes from us. They live in the same town as we do, and um, in 5 years, like I say, I ran into my brother once, but they would not have anything to do with us at all. If I went to my sister's, she owns this campground RV park, trailers and stuff. And have you ever met John Goodwin? Anyway, never met him, but when we were protesting at the relaunch of Battlefield Earth, and we were standing out on the sidewalk. They had this sort of section on the sidewalk on Hollywood Boulevard closed off, and he walked out, and he was probably 10 feet from me, and I yelled out to him. I said, John, have Emily call her mother. And he just turned around and walked away. Just, you know, he, Scientologist. They'll do that. They won't engage. Very, very rarely do they engage. Most likely they'll walk away or run away or whatever. But they're definitely not going to engage. So that's the closest I came to meeting John Goodwin. Never met him in person, really. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I'm asking Willie this. When we were at Author Services, did we ever meet John Goodwin? We might have met him.
Briefly.
I think actually we might have met him. We were at Author Services a few times. Before we were disconnected. So it might have been. I just don't remember meeting him. Possibly. I don't know for sure. But I'll take more questions, and I'm an open book, so you can ask me anything. I won't get into politics, and I won't say anything negative about anybody else, but you can ask about me, anything, and I'd be happy to answer a question. As a mother of two boys, I could never be without content. Yeah, I get that. It's tough. That part of it is tough. It never gets easier either. After all these years, and talking about it, and in the earlier days when we were doing the billboards and we were doing interviews on TV and radio and stuff, no matter how often I did it, and even now I start talking about the kids and I'm a basket case, and I just can't help it. It just, and I don't cry about stuff either. I just normally am just still keep my TRs in. Sorry, it's terrible. But yeah. it's a tough one. Question: do you have any plans to audit with Jeff from PTS for Life coming up? Well, Jeff is in the west, on the West Coast. We did some protesting with him when he was out here. He came out to Ontario, and there was an event that Scientology had, and we were protesting. Jeff's a good friend, and I really appreciate the stuff he's doing. Definitely, if you're not following PTS for Life on YouTube, then I would say definitely go and follow him. He's done some good work lately, and he sometimes he'll also get down to Portland, and I know he was at that SAFE, the SAFE conference in Portland a little while ago. But no, he's doing some good work. He gets out there, and I think he posts more than I do. I've been doing this once a week thing. I've done a few interviews lately. Yeah, if Jeff came out here, I would definitely go out to audit. Is it normal thing to get upset about all that you guys are going through? Is it a normal thing? I don't know. See, you know, the thing is, when you're in Scientology for years, and you do TRs, and eventually you get this thing where you're in your head. If something happens, you automatically run in your head, keep your TRs in, meaning don't react, don't react, don't react. And over 40 years of doing that, a lot of it gets suppressed. So I think what happens partly is when I get this sort of bubbling up of emotion, it's more than I would normally have. And I've seen that in other ex-Scientologists as well. I've seen that with Aaron too. I mean, he must suffer the same kind of thing where you can't, like, you've suppressed it for so many years through keep your TRs in, keep your TRs in, that after a while, you know, if something does come up, you don't know what to do with it. It's like, you know, it's you're trying to keep it down, but the more you try that, the more it kind of comes up. It's like, you know, you're just not used to it. I mean, some people maybe not have. Depends, I guess, on how much of that they ran on themselves or how much auditing they had over the years. When do you start making people sign non-disclosure agreements when people wanted to route it? When did they? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one. When they started doing non-disclosure agreements, Willie and I signed contracts when we were both on staff back in the 70s, and we signed contracts. I don't remember what's on the contract, actually. I think it was a one-page thing. I don't know if there was a non-disclosure on there or not, but whatever there was on there, it's gone, because that org, where all of our paperwork, all our ethics files, all of the stuff that we had done, audited on, everything burned up. That org at 124 Avenue Road burnt to the ground, and there were a few folders that survived. And I remember later years in the 80s going into session, and the auditor had this stack of folders, and one of them had all this black singed paper because it was just all burned away. And after the fire, to get audited, they had to kind of do this folder rebuild thing. What if you don't want to pay? You owe Scientology. Can they take you to court? No, they can't take you to court. But what they do threaten you with is that you would. I mean, the first thing they threaten you with is if you ask for your money back, is they'll say, well, you know, you never could do Scientology ever again. And if you have that in your belief that you would think it works, then you're going to pay. You know, you'll pay a freeloader's debt if you want to continue on. The other thing they can threaten you with is disconnection from your family. If you have family that's in Scientology, and you kind of go, yeah, if I got my money back, then that becomes a suppressive act or a high crime in Scientology. And then, yeah, then my brother, my sister, my aunts, or I don't have any aunts or uncles in, but anyway, whoever you have in. So they can't take you to court, but they can definitely, or they just, you know, refuse, or they, you know, whatever. We've had 2 freeloaders debts in our lives, and we paid them because they were early on back in the 70s. And I think when I was on staff in the 70s, and Willie got pregnant, and then I wanted to go off staff, and I had a freeloader's debt. and I paid it. I can't remember. I think it was like $900 or something. And then in the early 80s, Willie was on staff for a while. And then, but it started to get crazy. And I actually had her come off staff. I said, no, they were having her stay up to 3 a.m. Every night, going out on after post, going out on the street in Toronto, downtown, where all the bums are, and trying to sell Dianetics books. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. So they gave her a freeloader's debt. And I said, how can it be that much? She was only on, she didn't get any services. Go and refigure it out. They came back and it was a higher amount. And then I said, no. And he came back with a higher amount. And I mean, eventually I paid it, but it was like, they just add on whatever they want to add on. And then they'll do it at the top prices. There's no discounted prices. And I don't know. It's just, so anyway, I never paid one after that because we never went back on staff after that ever. And I never would have. And we always avoided the Sea Org as well. So we never would have gone in the Sea Org. Were there any questions I missed?
Jenna P. asked, does Willie ever do interviews or posts on social media?
Willie hasn't done interviews. Well, when we did the billboards, we did interviews together on some of the TV, like Good Morning America and the Today Show or whatever it was, Matt Lauer and stuff. But on the live streams and stuff, she hasn't. I mean, I can ask her if she will. Nope, she's nodding her head. This is not easy for both of us. We're both not really outgoing type people for that kind of stuff. I do this because I just, overall, we're fighting for the kids, and anything we can put out there that might help fight against Scientology as a whole. I mean, if it turns out that Scientology having to come down is the only way we get our kids back, then so be it. We'll fight until that point. Okay, I can't read that. So somebody mentioned earlier, can you route out as public? Public don't necessarily need to route out. If you're a public Scientologist, you can actually just fade out. There's not going to be a freeloader's debt because you haven't done any contract with Scientology. If you criticize, if you leave Scientology or you make a public announcement that you're leaving, like if you're a public Scientologist and you say, I'm leaving, and I put it in writing that I'm leaving Scientology, that is a high crime in Scientology. And you can be declared suppressive for that. And then you're subject to fair game. There's a question in there I missed, Willie. Did you see that? I couldn't.
How do you feel Canada is doing with Scientology?
So in Canada, Scientology does not have. They're not considered a religion in Canada. They don't have tax exempt status here, and also they don't have. There's no religious exemption for minimum wage. I think we've talked about this a few times that the staff in various orgs in Canada are not paid minimum wage. They're paid peanuts, probably $5-10 a week, or maybe $20 a week or something, for 40, 50, 60 hours a week work.
I remember making $4.
And then there's back in our day, back in the 70s, we had pays of $2.50, $4.60, stuff like that. It was just useless. But there have been some lawsuits in Canada from ex-Scientologists to recover lost pay, and they've won. I mentioned before this one in Quebec that a group of ex-Scientologists sued and won $900,000. So it can be done, and I hope it gets done more. But Scientology in Canada, there's not much left. There aren't many people. When we were out protesting in Cambridge for the May 9th event, Willie was counting every person who came in, and there were 20 people in all the cars that came in. There's only one way in. There's no back way. So, excuse me. So there were 20 people for one of their major events of the year, and that was their biggest org in Canada. So it's pretty slow here. I emailed I missed that. Sorry. Bear with me here. Coffee break. So um, most of the orgs, like Winnipeg has an org, and I've been down there a number of times. They bought a building years ago, right downtown Winnipeg, and it's an old, uh, decrepit building, and I've posted pictures of it and stuff. They have not done anything, and there's just no way in a million years that building is going to be renovated, let alone occupied. The property they're renting I think a second floor on a little side street in Winnipeg. And the reason I bring up Winnipeg is because we go there to see family, and anytime we go there, I go past the org, and their hours now, they have a sign on the front like, you know, a couple hours a night for 4 nights a week, and and I've never seen anybody go in there even during those times. It's just there can't be more than 2 or 3 people in there, and if they're thinking that they're going to have an ideal org in Winnipeg at any time, it's never going to happen. They don't have anybody there that would put up the money. And Toronto the same. You know, they've been raising money in Toronto for over a decade, maybe 15 years, to renovate that building downtown Toronto on Yonge Street. That thing is still falling apart, and they've done no renovations on it at all. They've taken out permits a few times and they expire, and nothing is ever done. It's just not going to happen because there aren't enough people now in Scientology in Toronto to man it up. Orgs are empty everywhere in North America. They are absolutely true. Um, it's shrinking like mad, and that's one reason we're still doing, like, fighting on this, because it's going to get to a point where there won't be enough staff or any staff to man up a small org. And anywhere like Toronto org, um, um, Toronto still has some public. They have that building on O'Connor. So they've rented, I think, 1 or 2 floors on an office building in Toronto. It's kind of in an odd area, but Scooter Mom, I think it was Scooter Mom, sent me a picture of a couple of people that were going in or coming out of the org in Toronto at O'Connor, and asked me if I knew them, and I did know them. The one was Earl Smith, who is the president of Scientology Canada, and the other was Pat Felsky, who is the OSA or DSA. DSA is basically the local OSA office. So they still have some presence there. And then there's the office in Hamilton where the Sea Org people are, the CLO, Continental Liaison Office. There's still some people around, but it's shrinking. It's getting smaller, and they're not being able to bring new people in. I know it's shrinking everywhere, but I think Canada's winning that race. I think Canada's winning the race of shrinkage. And when an org gets too small, where there can be no more, have you been to the Vancouver org? What's it like? The current one, no. I watch Jeff's PTS for Life, his live streams when he goes down there in front of the org, and there aren't many people going in and out of there. He knows them all because he worked in that org. That building I've never been in. Back in 1972, I think they had some big hitter who bought a building or got them into a building down there. And back in 72, I had sort of been in Scientology, but I'd been off working a bit, and I was going through Vancouver, and I was in a car with some friends, and we drove by that building, and I saw the sign Scientology, but I never had any desire to go in it. And I didn't. I'd never been in any Vancouver building. And even when we lived in Calgary, and when there was an org in Calgary back in the mid 70s, I only went in that building once, never did any services there. Question: what are your thoughts on the scavenge not publicly addressing issues openly now? Um, you know, typically Scientology has had a spokesperson, like back in the day when Mike Rinder was the spokesperson, and then they had what's his name? No, no, there was. Oh, I'm terrible at this. Yeah, and also Miscavige. Miscavige doesn't speak that well in public unless he's doing a speech that's written up and he's reading off a teleprompter. I haven't really seen him. Anytime I've seen him do any off the cuff, never very, very good. But he also doesn't want to be out there showing his face because there's people wanting to serve him summonses and stuff, and he's also apparently very fearful of his life. He, if I'm sure he's got bulletproof this and bulletproof that everywhere, and he's even afraid of getting close to people because even like with children, he's afraid to be near kids because he's afraid that their body thetans are going to jump onto him. I don't know why. I've never heard of body thetans jumping from one to another, but I suppose it could happen. Heber Gents, thank you so much. And then there was also anyway, Tom, what's his name? Blue suede shoes guy. Anyway, yeah, I know, terrible with names. Anyway, so I've never really seen Miscavige as a spokesperson because they have to be willing to do interviews. Heber was really good at it to a degree. I mean, he could get a little bit sort of in somebody's face a little bit too much, but I suppose that he had some likability. Somebody was mentioning scuba diving in the Caribbean. Yes, David Miscavige loved scuba diving, and when he would go to the free winds, he would have a boat they would hire on Scientology tax-free dollars, having a scuba diving boat standing by all day, every day while he was there in case he decided he wanted to go scuba diving. And when our daughter was working on his staff, she would go scuba diving with him, and they would be out on jet skis and stuff like that in the Caribbean. So, but I think that's how she ended up getting licensed for scuba diving, and she ended up being a scuba diver as well. We're still trying to find out if Andrew Barton is on the free winds. Nobody knows. Yeah, I don't know, and I have no idea how to find that out. Yeah, we don't have a whole lot of the inside information. We used to have a few kind of places we could get information from, but it's getting harder. Scientology's tightened that down quite a bit, so it is a bit more difficult to get information out. Tommy Davis, thank you so much. See, some people have memories, not like me. Tommy Davis, yeah, he was a spokesman. He's the guy that got in. Yes, here I go again. In the face of that, you were not there at the beginning of the interview. The screaming match. Anyway, yeah, it's one of those days. Some days I'm better with names and memory, and some days not. But I'm in my 70s now, so that's my excuse. I'm sticking with that one. But yeah, Tommy Davis, Mike Rinder, and those guys were actual, and Guillaume. Well, no, he was ED. Guillaume was yeah, John Sweeney. Thank you so much, Kaz. John Sweeney, yeah. That was actually really good. And John took that and just ran with it. It became his thing. You were not there at the beginning of the interview. Brilliant piece that. And the BBC. Yeah. Yeah, we did when we were doing the billboards, BBC did an interview with us too, and they had it all through. They did it in Spanish as well. I don't speak Spanish, but they did the whole thing Spanish through South America and everything. That got quite a bit of press, that old billboard we did, the Call Me billboard, all around the world, everywhere. We did interviews. Australia, we were on live TV. Australia, we were living in Vegas at the time. They set up a studio in Vegas, and we sat down, and I guess whatever the time difference was, that we were, I guess, in the evening, and it was a morning show in Australia, and they interviewed us there. Nora was saying the old billboards never got up because Tony Ortega kept announcing it ahead of time, and the cult killed. No, that's not actually quite true, and I understand how Nora could get that, feel that might have been the case, but what happened was I was giving those stories to Tony because I wanted to get the press on it. I wanted to get the press on the billboards. It wasn't Tony's decision to post those. And I could see how it could be looked at that as that way. And we knew that we also had that company. There was 3 companies we were dealing with for billboards. And the one company we finally ended up going with, they had agreed, had gone all the way to the top, that they were going to do it for us. So the other 2 got shut down by Scientology, but it generated so much press interest. And that was the purpose of us doing those stories ahead of time before the launch. And then when they got shut down, every time they got shut down, the press would grow, so that when we finally launched the first billboard, everybody was there. Inside Edition, Good Morning America, Today Show. I mean, it was huge, international press, and a lot of that had to do with because we were announcing the billboards ahead of time, just to generate that press, because we knew we couldn't get a billboard like at the time right on the doorstep of Scientology, so it was going to be a little ways away from their orgs. So our best bet was to generate enough press. Just to get it out there everywhere, even on the local Los Angeles news stations, so it was out there for sure. Just joined, but watch the replay. You seem to be such, oh, thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate that. I missed the last part of the comment though. Was it with Oh No Nora? I'm not sure what the rest of the question was. I'll apologize for that. Okay, appreciate the kind words anyway, I do. So anyway, we did get the billboard up, and it was up for a couple of months. And then we did one in Clearwater, and then we did another one in Los Angeles nearby the Scientology Media Productions. It was about a half a block from their Media Productions building, and we could see the building from where the billboard was. And during that time, we had PIs following us at times, and we had lawyers' letters, like really threatening lawyers' letters from their top lawyers. Their $2,000 an hour lawyers were sending us really nasty, threatening letters, and that we were going to be sued and all that. But we just kept on. We just, they didn't end up suing us. So the last part was that I wish you all my best. Thank you, Grace. I do appreciate that. You guys have been so great. I appreciate the support we've had, and through all of these years that we've been speaking out. We went through a fair bit of time between the billboards and now not speaking out that much. But this whole live stream has provided a new medium for us too. I've written some articles out there a little bit. I've done some interviews with some different reporters, some here in Canada. But through it all, from the early days when we were doing the Call Me billboards to now, the support has been just incredible, and I just appreciate that so much. I mean, really, I tell you, that really keeps us going. It really does. Otherwise I'd be sitting here talking to my phone, just talking a little. I had to do this on my phone because I'd set it up on my phone. I would have done it's pouring with rain outside. Normally for these live streams, we're sitting outside. But the weather's not so good. So I thought, well, I'll do it on the computer, but I had no idea, because once I set these live streams up as mobile, I didn't know how to switch it back to the computer. So I got my phone sitting up here on the stand. Question: what has happened to Pat Broker? Yeah, that I don't know. I think that, well, he was apparently followed for like a decade by 2 PIs, and for like something like $12 million Scientology spent to follow him. And I don't think he ever attacked or went, did anything to get back. I'm not sure, but I think he got educated and got a career somehow teaching. So I don't know, actually. I never knew Pat Broker, so I don't know. It's only from what I've read that's been written around there. So not something I know really the answer to. Wiki says followed for 25 years. So wow, 25 years. Think of the money that Scientology spent, tax-free dollars, to have 2 PIs following one guy. I mean, we've been followed, but not constantly, and that I know about anyway. I don't think we've been followed for a long time. But then again, they never let you go, and especially if like if we speaking out as long as we have, I'm sure they monitor us at least. Um, the only thing I've ever seen lately is someone walking off with our trash, but I don't know. And it wasn't the recycling; it was just the trash bag. So I don't know. And I know Scientology does that to see if you have any notes in there about what you're planning. So uh, that's not where I put my notes. I don't make notes. I don't make notes about my plans. Speaking of plans, so next week, next Saturday, we aren't going to do our regular live stream 5 p.m. thing because on Sunday we're going to be outside doing a live stream protest. So hopefully you'll all tune in because it's going to be exciting because there's going to be some interesting things there, I think. Um, Please pass on our best to Natalie and Tony. Yes. Oh man, this is going to make me emotional too. Um, they're such nice people. Oh my God. Yeah. All the support and love to Natalie and Tony. I know. Um, yeah, Natalie was unable to do um, her thing today, her live stream summary today, or not live stream, her summary today because I guess Tony is in the hospital. So anyway, yeah, everybody give your love out there. Um, wishing them the best. Anyway, um, yeah, there's some good people in this whole field here. Um, yeah, Aaron did the show for her today. Um, I yeah, um, yeah. Hopefully she'll be back on it tomorrow, but we'll see. So anyway, so for us next week, next Sunday, I believe we're going to start around 5 p.m. Um, and we're going to be driving to another city, so we will be. Yeah, so watch out for it. So it's going to be kind of interesting, unless it's pouring with rain out there, in which case I'll just sit down and do something or other. But I think we'll be okay. It doesn't rain all the time here. We've been pretty lucky so far. So, and I think we've got some other live streamers that we're going to be with out there as well. So, yeah, this should be great. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll be outside. I'm going to walk around a little bit, and we've got a really great sign made up. One of the that is very appropriate, and I made up some flyers and stuff too. So we should be able to hand out a few things, and I think it's fine. What I'll try to do, I know some people have put up like little notices on their live stream thing that like announcing it. Rather than schedule the live stream, I might just put a notice up like that, and I'll try to narrow it down to what time exactly we're going to get on there. But it should be around 5 p.m. on Sunday. The what date is that? That's anyway. Calendar right behind me, and yet my eyes are so bad I can't read it without my glasses. There we go. 16th. There we are. 16th, about 5 p.m. ish. So I'll probably wrap this up now. I think unless somebody has another question, I am happy to answer any more questions. But we will keep up the fight, and we're going to keep doing this until either everybody's kids come out and everybody's parents come out, everybody's brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, and disconnection ends. There's a lot of other abuses that Scientology does, but I think we've kind of made it our project a little bit to kind of help end disconnection, Scientology forced disconnection, and and I want thank you again, everybody who tunes in on this. Thank you, thank you, thank you for coming in and joining us for this this fight, this battle that we're doing. All right, so I'm going to end, and pardon my finger here. It's going to go right over this button here. I think that's it.